Hey Kharja, Falcharot go easy Irish le Gaeltach Duluth. Sean Unshaw, today we're going to go over how to say, I would like something, and would you like, in this case, a cup of coffee. We'll start off with a scenario of how it looks, saying, would you like a cup of coffee? Yes, I would. And then asking for a little milk and sugar, and then stay tuned, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty grammar and what's really going on in those phrases. Okay? Let's get started. Martinois.
Hiya, Jan.
Hi, Jan.
Er a Wylot cup and coffee?
Bawailam. Libanya agus shukra little high.
Agus fáilte.
So that first phrase there is Majinwa. Majinwa. That means good morning.
Hiya, Jan.
Hi, Jan.
The response there is Hi, Ahyan. Hi, Ahyan. And that's Hi, Sean, or the Irish equivalent of John, Sean.
Er a Wylot cup and coffee?
So then, Jaron asks me, Wailat cuppen coffee? Wailat cuppen coffee? And that's, would you like a cup of coffee? Bawailam. Libanya agus shukra little high. And I respond, Bawailam. Bawailam. I would like. It's kind of the way of saying yes to that question of would you like blah blah blah. Wailat? Bawailam. And then I said, Libanya agus shukra little high. Libanya with milk, agus shukra, and sugar, Ludahul. Please.
Agus fáilte.
And at the end there, Jess says, agus falcha. Agus falcha. Just an Irish way of saying, with pleasure. So what all is going on here? Well, let's start out with the first phrase. Majinwa. Good morning. So with Majinwa, we have Majin, which is simply the word for morning. And then we have wa after it, which is a lenited form of ma. Now, what is lenition? Lenited, something that has had lenition done unto it. Well, literally it means a softening. The Irish term for it is shevu. The word ma has had shevu done on it. So you take that first consonant, in this case M, and it gets softened. When M gets lenited, in this case, when it's broad, meaning the letter A or O or U, etc., we'll get into that, follows it, then it gets a W sound. So becomes W when it's softened or lenited. It gets shevu. Ma becomes wa. Now, why does this happen? Kind of weird. Well, this happens when adjectives describe a feminine noun. Now, if you're familiar with some other European languages, those of you who had to take Spanish or French back in the day or whatnot, you'll know that a lot of languages, unlike English, which got rid of this in its history, have genders. I'm not talking about male, female, etc. What I'm talking about is grammatical gender, which doesn't always have a lot to do with biological gender or perceived genders, etc. What's going on here, rather, is that every single noun in the Irish language belongs to one of two grammatical genders, masculine or feminine. Again, these usually don't really have anything to do with any sort of perceived biological or otherwise gender. They're kind of arbitrary. So, majin, morning, for example, is feminine. Just 'cause. Just 'cause. There's really no theology or philosophy behind it. So, when adjectives describe feminine nouns, in this case, they get lenited, if their first consonant can be lenited. So, Majin, when it's a good morning, Majin ma. They go together, that ma has to be lenited, because the Majin is feminine. Majin wa. Next, Jess and Jaren said to me, "Hiya, Hyun." So, hi, that's just kind of a casual way of saying, you guessed it, hi in Irish. The more traditional form, which you can see in my video on it about the traditional greeting in Irish, is Dia Dich, God be with you. And the response, Dias Muridich, God and Mary be with thee. Very traditional, very formal. Usually you can just say hi. So that's what my sister and future brother-in-law said to me when I came into their coffee shop. Hi, Hyun. Then we have this Hyun thing. Why don't they say Sean? It all has to do with the vocative. What's the vocative? The vocative is the case you put nouns or names into when you're addressing someone in Irish. Okay? So if you're saying something like, hey John, or hey Kathy, hi Mary, you're calling out someone's name like that, it's called the vocative. And when we put names and other nouns into the vocative, when we're calling out someone or saying, hey, we're addressing them, something happens to these nouns and to these names. For one, whether they're masculine or feminine, the first letter of that name gets lenited. It gets shevu, just like feminine adjectives that we were talking about with majinwa. So if that first consonant can receive shevu, can be softened, can be lenited, it will be. So Sean, the letter S, followed by E, making it slender, when it gets shevu, it just becomes a H sound. It gets written SH then in Irish, but that doesn't have a sh sound in English. SH in Irish is actually pronounced like an H, okay? Like an English H, I should say. So that softening of the first consonant happens in both masculine and feminine names and nouns. For just masculine nouns and names, another thing happens. If it can be, if applicable, the last letter will become slenderized. In other words, if it doesn't already have an I or an E next to it, it will now. Okay? So the name Sean is usually spelled S-E-A-N, Sean. When it's put into the vocative, it becomes S-H-E-A-I-N. So Sean becomes Hyun. The ending on feminine names and nouns does not get slenderized. Just for whatever reason. They didn't like it. They were like, nah, we're not doing that. No, just the masculine ones. That's good enough. And then we have Waihlat Cup Kaffee. Waihlat Cup Kaffee. So what's going on here? So, to start off, we have er. Er here is the question form of the word is in the conditional. Now, what's the conditional, Sean? The conditional is what we call that form of a verb where it expresses things like, would you, blah, 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 blah. Would you go to the park with me? Would you like a cup of coffee? So that's what we're using here. We are using the conditional interrogative, in other words, question form of is, which is A-R. That's when we're asking questions. Blah, 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 blah. And then the statement back would be ba, blah, 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 blah. Just like a lot of things lately, it seems, shifts whatever follows it into shevu, lenites it. So that's why it's walat, not mahlat. Even though we have the word ma again there, which means good still. But here, because it follows it gets shevu. And then the phrase walat finishes with lat, L-E-A-T, lat, which is one of those fused prepositions in Irish, where we have l plus tu with you, but Irish doesn't do le tu with you. Instead, those prepositions fuse together with the pronoun that they go along with, and it becomes one word, lat, lat, L-E-A-T, lat, with you. So literally, this phrase is, would it be good with you? Walat, would it be good with you? A cup of coffee, cupan coffee. Would it be good with you? Cup of coffee? But walat is just kind of that expression. Irish is full of expressions like that, metaphorical phrases and statements. And so that's just the way in Irish of saying, would you like? Would it be good with you? Would it be good with you, a cup of coffee? To which I then said, bawahlam, bawahlam. And that's simply, yes, I would like. Now note, and you might have heard of this before, that Irish doesn't really have words for yes and no exactly. Instead, you repeat the verb from the question. Now in this case, you repeat a little bit more of the phrase itself. So the person asked, would it be good with you? A cup of coffee? Would you like a cup of coffee? That's a literal translation. So you reply, it would be good. It would be good. Bawahlam. Bawahlam. It would be good with me. And then I said, le bonya, bonya, le bonya, shukra, agus shukra. And then we had lidahoil, 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 which is literally now, with your will, with your will. And again, back to this Irish enjoying using sort of poetic, metaphorical phrases and whatnot. That's how you say please in Irish. Okay? That just means please. It's not literally like, with thy will, your highness, you know. Don't think of it that way. Think of it literally just like, please. With milk and sugar, please. Le banya agus shukra lidahoil. Lidahoil. With your will. By thy will. But again, it doesn't have those super serious connotations with it. It really is just the common way of saying please. And in that phrase, we have le, which is just the word for with all by itself. And then do, which is your, but just one person's your. If you were speaking to like a bunch of people, like y'all, you guys's, with your guys's will, with y'all's will, that would be a different word. That would be were, le were doil. And the word hoil there in the phrase lidahoil, it's usually toil. The word for will is toil. So do, the word your or thy, that, you guessed it, puts the next word into shevu. Good old shevu. We're just loving shevu this time around, aren't we? So it puts shevu on the first consonant of the word that follows it. So that's why it's not lidatoil. That That would just be crazy. No, it is le de hol. And the letter T, when it receives chez vous, when it is lenited or softened, it becomes TH, which in modern Irish is pronounced H. Just an H sound, a breathy H. Hull. Hull. And then right at the end there, Jess says, agus falcha. Agus falcha. That's just another sort of phrase meaning, like, with pleasure, or yes, indeed, And welcome. It's literally and welcome. Well, Acharja, that does it for today's video. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to leave a comment below or get in touch with me on our Irish Duluth Facebook page. Check it out, and the link is in the description below. For more Irish, please like and subscribe. Your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. And hey, next time you're in Duluth, Minnesota, be sure to check out Amity Coffee. They're delicious. And what service? Great people. Great people. Berbua, das ist